be discussing measuring purchase intent to scale ROAS and conversion rate. And so before we get started, a couple of facts for you guys to know. And I'm curious to know as well if you're ready for this holiday season. Seems like this year has been flying by, and now we're all really gearing up for busy season if you're an e-commerce marketer. What we're expecting to see this season is an increase in spend, in digital ad spend of 12.6%. And we're also expected to see an 8.4% increase in online shopping for the holiday season. That's $240 billion just in the US alone. And so this is an exciting time because I want, the people that we work with or use our platform to get as much of that money as possible and to utilize the data that they already have available or be prepared with the right data to maximize that their share of revenue that they're going to collect, right? And so as you think about this holiday season, we don't have a lot of time left to prepare, and you need to really be on top of it with some of the tools and tricks that we're going to show today. So if you give me about 35 minutes, I hope to cover a few topics with you today. Number one, how to measure what we call purchase intent. What does that mean, and how is it relevant for you as you maximize metrics like ROAS or conversion rate, right? Understand how you can actually do that. We're going to walk through some case studies, and then we're going to understand how to avoid common mistakes that ecom leaders make. And if you stick around to the end, I think Measure Minds is doing a big giveaway announcement, and we're also going to have, in the spirit of holiday season topics, a gift for everybody attending, valued at $2,000. So hopefully, you guys can take us up on that. Highly recommend you do, and we'll go from there. So quickly about me, founder CEO of Penpath, as Will mentioned, based out of St. Louis, Missouri, here in the Midwest. If anybody is from the Midwest or from around the world, I know we have an international audience. Definitely let us know in the chat where you're joining in from. I want to hear that. I have done consulting and analysis for brands for many years now and driven about 525 million in incremental growth. And I think spreadsheets suck. I don't like doing them. I think it's a waste of time. What I do love is interpreting information, bringing these connecting dots for decision makers and understanding how human behavior can be influenced with this data. I think it's sometimes, the insights that we find yield so much benefit. It's like finding, it's like looking for treasure. I mean, not to be cheesy about it, but I really do enjoy it. Personally, on my end, I'm a big fan of MMA. It's kind of the one sport I like to watch most often. And I also, as a data-driven person, love to optimize health, read about it, different, things on that topic that I find interesting. So that's a little bit about me. And what's interesting is I have a certain set of skills, so to speak, that I've learned being in this industry, that I love to help others learn as well and share what I know, right? And so given that I've built a platform that provides these insights, I know how data is delivered at the raw format, right? How Facebook gives you data, how Google Analytics provides data at the very unstructured level. And I've learned how to interpret and understand this information, right? How to bring it all together and make it make sense. And then ultimately, I do have a background as a practitioner. And so then we have to translate it once we interpret it into priorities and outcomes that we're looking to achieve. And reporting can truly be automated, interpreted by teams, and used to drive results. And today, you are investing in yourself. You're investing in building these skills. And if you are able to do them, if you're able to follow what we do today, I think it'll help advance a lot of the objectives that you currently have. So our platform offers the infrastructure, consulting, and analysis. We have dashboards up and running in 7 days. We start digging into the data, and we have a lot of flexibility in how we've built our platform to fulfill a lot of needs that e-commerce professionals need, as that is where we're specialized. And what does that data look like, and how can you leverage it to drive success? And time after time, as we deal with people in the space, or e-commerce leaders specifically, we see certain common moments that that are the catalyst of requiring you to dig into that data and truly understand it, right? A lot of times this looks like the leadership team going into a retreat. They come back and talk to the growth team and say, hey, look, we got to be successful. We got to hit our growth markers. And, in this situation, we've done the math and we need to hit a 3.5x ROAS to stay profitable. Teams sometimes react in a similar fashion that you see here, right? It's a little bit overwhelming. And, the growth team says, something along the lines of like, hey, ROAS is so volatile. I have no clue where to start. We've tried different things. We're a little bit stuck, and we want more tools, more abilities to understand how to get to those performance metrics that the leadership gives us, right? This is very common, and we need to find different solutions to these requests. And so back in the day when you had in the Middle Ages, right, the priests were the ones that were able to read. They were the only ones that were able to read, or one of the few people, and they would read the Bible, and everybody would look to them for answers, and the king would look to them, and everybody, what's the interpretation of God or in the Bible and things of that nature. And so they had a lot of power, right, because they knew how to understand it, and they told everybody what to believe. And so really, that's an analogy that still sticks today. If you are the one on your team, or if you're an agency or consultant, and you understand how to interpret the data, it's safe to assume that you can yield a lot of power if you know how to do it correctly, if you don't overwhelm people, if you look at the things that are relevant, right? That is true today, as it always has been. If you have that knowledge and you can interpret that information, that's what you can do. And we really here at Penpath believe that the data does exist for you to 2-3x your business. It's just a matter of what data are you going to be looking at, and at what time, right? There's a lot of relevance to this, and timing and prioritization, but the data does exist. So let's look at that, and let's look at how some of the brands that we've worked with have driven very measurable success with the data-driven approach. So we're hearing people really struggle right now with, how do we fix ROAS? It's so volatile. We're relying on these algorithms to prioritize performance, or not prioritize, to optimize performance for us. We're hearing that the agency doesn't always have clear answers on how to improve. Maybe the agency is really focused on just the Facebook data, or just the the Google ads data, and they're not really looking at things holistically, or what other things may be driving performance peaks or valleys. A lot of success depends on some critical metrics. One of those, of course, is conversion rate. Out of everybody that we bring to the store, how many walk out or purchase, right? Walk out with a product, so to speak. They don't know how to improve conversion rate. I've heard ecom leaders say, I don't want to just change this button from red to blue. I want something more. We also hear that people want to understand their customers' behavior. What are our customers doing, right? I love thinking about an e-commerce store, an online store, like a physical store. How are customers navigating the store? Are they going over to this department? Are they going over to this section and look at those clothes? I mean, what are they doing? And what are the opportunities that you have in e-commerce that are advantageous compared to somebody that's a physical location? And we also hear a lot from ecom leaders that they don't want to just rely on what Meta and Klaviyo say. They want more information that maybe is external, or as a third party source. We also know that there's a lot of different attribution tools that have these bells and whistles. There's definitely a divisive topic here. A lot of ecom leaders, when you get to a certain point, you start caring a lot less about those attribution fancy tools, and you just kind of want to know, bottom line, where are we at? And sometimes you don't want to just keep digging and speculating there too much more than what they claim to be the truth. And then last but not least is, you want to have less tools, not more. It's a lot of times you don't want to set up another pixel. You want to use what tools you already have available, the ones that you've already spent time learning. That's where you probably want to spend and focus your growth on, not another tool to think about. And so that's where we're at. And then, like I said, today, let's learn about purchase intent as a tool to have in your stack And so it's like any tool, and you know, and think about a tool shed, there's a time and a place for every tool. You don't use the screwdriver every single day or the hammer. So today you're going to learn about this specific tool, when to use it and how. So to define it as we see it, is any customer journey activity that signals a visitor's interest in a product or offer, encompassing interactions that demonstrate intent and can serve as indicators for conversion likelihood. So another way of saying it is it answers the question, are people showing interest and consideration? All of these signals, can we bring them together that and assume that we have a better understanding of interest and consideration of purchasing what we have to offer, right? It's pretty self-explanatory, purchase intent. But again, ultimately, what it's trying to answer is, are people showing interest and considering purchasing what we offer? Now, if you buy something that is going to cost you know, $50,000, your consideration and interest phase of that purchase is probably going to be longer than if you're buying something that is only $2. And so a lot of this that I'm going to go over today, you're going to have to think about as it relates to the business or use cases that you deal with, because there's certainly a different consideration stage based on what you're selling and who your customers are. But first things first, one of the reasons that we partner with brands like Measure Minds is because we try to help our customers be set up for success. The old adage of data is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the data set up, you're going to struggle. And so the first order of business before we start understanding purchase intent, and one of the key sources of information that we utilize is events in Google Analytics. And so make sure that you have all of your relevant events set up, and you do these through tools like Google Tag Manager, right? Making sure that things are set up as needed. And the one, you know, a lot of people certainly aren't big fans of everything that's changed from UA, you know, the old version of Google Analytics to GA4. But one of the good things that has become available is that they replaced goals. And so in UA, Universal Analytics, you used to have 20 goals to pick from, or you were maxed out at, unless you wanted to pay a lot of money for their 360 solution. And GA4 said, you know what, we're going to make everything events, and everything can be something that you have more data for. And so what's nice about it is that you can associate where people are coming from to any single event. So an add to cart event, you can see where did everybody come from, what campaign sources and mediums, etc., are leading to the add to cart event. So this actually opened up a lot of opportunity for those interested in learning more about something like a purchase intent. And that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. And so right now, with the time that you have between busy season and today, you just want to make sure that everything is set up correctly and working as needed. So this is a great start because you may be asking yourself, or people that you work with may be asking themselves, I don't know what events I need, right? I need a good starting point. And so if you do look at some of the GA4 documentation, they provide a list of standard events. They call them standard shopping events that are a great start for you to go off of. But you know, would love to know in the chat, and I should probably pull up the chat here somewhere. I would love to know what are the things that you guys are setting up as events, because, you know, certainly there's different strategies that we're going to be talking about. So put in the chat, what are the events that you guys think about when it's related to your website's purchase intent? Would love to know that. And Sarah and some people from my team are going to be reading what you guys say. Oops. All right. So somehow my slide screen went away. Okay. So here are the ones that Google suggests. It's a list that Google provides on events. So you have add payment info, you have add to cart, you have add to wish list, checkout, purchase, etc. These are all events that, you know, obviously can be utilized when you want to optimize that purchase intent. And so, okay, great. Let's just assume that you guys have this figured out. Some of you haven't. Some of you, this has already been done. You're good. So here's the next step. And I know this sounds obvious, but honestly, it just doesn't. This isn't an exercise that people carve out enough time to do. And I think it's so critical. And the output that you get from this exercise for the input of time that you have to invest is a no-brainer. So please do this. We teach and do consulting for major brands. Doesn't matter the size. This is an exercise that you definitely want to do. So think of your customer funnel, right? And so right now we're showing it from left to right, from the awareness stage all the way to repurchasing and retention. Think of what your funnel might look like. This is a great starting point if you don't know what a starting point look like for you. And you have to map what metrics go with each of these stages, right? And we're going to be talking a lot about the relationship between metrics here shortly. So I will build onto this. There are certain metrics that are outside of your website, right? Things like impressions, engagement, click-through rate, and new users. Those might be things that are being driven by things outside of your website, obviously like an advertisement or, whatever email campaign you just sent. But once they get to your website, you have these indicators, right? Such as add to cart, product views, form fills, site search, checkout, etc. And that's obviously where the events that we're talking about today live. So, like I said earlier, there's a time and place to use different tools. If you're optimizing things, you're going to maybe want to optimize and look at some of the things that are happening in that Facebook ads is telling you, or that Meta ads is, or I'm sorry, Google ads is telling you. And then when they get to your site, you're going to want to optimize by looking at the GA4 events. So just know how to compartmentalize this information. And it's so much easier when you're like, hey, something's happening in conversion with our conversion rate. Let's look at events associated with that, right? So let's keep going there. And let me know if you have any questions. I don't want to belay this point, but it's just so critical to think about. The next thing I want to show you is, again, a really important exercise that will allow you to be that priest that we talked about earlier and give you so much power and control. And that's understanding the relationship of all your metrics. So this is an example of what that looks like. If you look at the very far left, you're going to see $1. That's your input, right? You spend $1. And on the far right, of course, the output is $5. So ultimately in marketing, you want every time you put in $1 in the machine, it's going to spit $5 back out. And you as a marketer are typically just optimizing this machine. And then if you do a really good job, you're going to be the hero, right? So let's understand what actually has to go into this machine. And overall, you're looking at that orange line. That's your ROAS, right? And then how did you get there? Well, in this example, you're seeing you spend money, you drove clicks. Those clicks landed on your website, which are sessions. Those sessions turned into orders, and those orders were obviously turned into revenue, right? So between every step, you have different ratios or rates that are happening. Sessions to orders, very popular conversion rate. And that's where this is going to come into play, right? When do you use purchase intent? Is when you're trying to optimize or fix something that's happening with your conversion rate. What exactly do you do if your conversion rate needs to improve, right? And so think about that as the purchase intent stage in your analysis. So the activities that a visitor performs in our online store that indicate interest in your offer. I hope that makes sense. And then I hope kind of what is the catalyst of looking at purchase intent is for optimizing ROAS, but more specifically, you can look at it as optimizing conversion rate. Okay, so we already talked about some of those events: add to cart, begin checkout, subscribe to your email form, or did a search in your catalog. Those can all show signals of purchase intent. Now, as you come up with these events, as you run tests, always use the 100x rule. This is going to be really important for you guys. So in order to remove the noise and detect the signal from the noise, this is going to be what you do, right? So you're going to say, if we 100x this event, will we improve the outcome that we're looking for? If you do 100x of anything and the outcome doesn't change, then it doesn't matter, right? And so an easy example of this would be if we 100x, how many people do the begin checkout in our funnel or the event, will that improve the outcome? So I say this because I don't know, what you guys feel, but like so many people get caught up in data and things that don't matter. So always do the 100x rule and as a litmus test of what matters. The other strategic decision that you're going to have to make is what events to use when and how do you group them. So grouping events is a key part of figuring out purchase intent. So if you have a long list of events, a lot of you already have events set up, and maybe half of them don't mean anything. Somebody set them up and they don't mean anything. Make sure you do a review of all the events you have, which ones you need to get rid of, and do some housekeeping there. So group them and by where they take place in your customer journey. That's a good kind of rule of thumb. So for example, if you have a bottom of funnel campaign, you maybe want to look at those bottom of funnel events. If you're trying to bring in new interest, new people to the site, then maybe those you need to associate that traffic with, did they look at the product? Did they search on our site? We know they're not going to buy right away. So it may be more relevant for top of funnel campaigns to have more top of funnel events that show interest. That's a totally strategic decision that you guys have to make. But again, if you make the right calls here, you can better understand through that segmentation. All right, so I already kind of gave that example. And so if you have all of the events selected, you're going to have a total, right? So we had 300 events, 500 events, and then you can divide that by page views to see what that purchase intent rate is. So a company that we work with, I want to give you guys some stories here, improved ROAS by 24% in 3 weeks by doing some of these tactics. What happened was that their ROAS was very volatile, it was going up and down, and they needed to understand what they could do to improve performance. And they also wanted to be less reliant on Meta because Meta was too unpredictable. So what they did is they took like 10% of their budget and invested it into YouTube ads as a new channel. Then what they did is they looked at all the different attributions that were available. So they looked at first touch, linear, and last touch attribution. And the interesting thing is that they all said 0 ROAS for YouTube ads. So now they had to make a decision and they wanted to investigate a little bit more. They also used a multi-touch attribution tool that had 1.8x ROAS claimed. And now they were like, hey, I don't know if this is true or not, but they had nowhere else to go. The agency that they worked with did everything they could to maximize these ads according to them, and they needed something else. And so this was a great time to look at purchase intent, right? And they needed those leading indicators of success that would validate that ROAS. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a dashboard that we put together here at Penpath that highlights what that workflow can look like. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen here. I'm going to zoom in just a bit for you. And what we're seeing here is a dashboard where we're pulling in all that data, and we can, again, select what events we care about, right? And then maybe there's a lot of events that we didn't care about. And so we selected that. And then what I did is I wanted to look at maybe some of our source mediums, right? So we looked at Facebook, we looked at Instagram, we looked at all of our paid source mediums. And from that, we got a total number of event completions and a purchase intent rate, right? And so now we could better highlight those peaks and valleys. Now, if you're an executive, this is probably not an analysis that you're going to do. But if you're presenting to an executive, maybe it's a good idea to say, hey, out of all the important factors on your site, we drove 2,370 events. That, you can see how tolerant they are to that insight. Maybe it isn't a good time to say that, but if you're trying to diagnose or validate your efforts, that might be important. And then of course you can say this is up by 42%. So we're doing a lot of things right. We're getting a lot of these things to happen, right? And so in this dashboard, you're seeing that happen over time, that rate versus page views by day. We're also able to pull in the color here shows if it's above where it was in the last period, or if it's below. If it's green, it means it was. So you can see our add to carts are up, and you can see how those are happening here on event completions of add to carts versus that rate. And you can understand those points in time and how that's improving. And so obviously, if you want to drill down, you can have the right dashboards. Now, if you guys have dashboards, those are great things. So this is an interactive dashboard. You click on that add to cart, you can again boil down how many events are happening. What day did all this happen? You can see maybe you had a really good day on the 12th. And then down here below, we're showing you where all those campaigns are. What campaign now specifically is bringing in a lot of that add to cart data and information. Now, if this campaign is scaling and doing really well, awesome. But if it's not, maybe you have somewhere to go. Maybe you have now more opportunity to analyze, hey, this is that YouTube campaign. We're looking at how many events it drove and then what that purchase intent rate looks like. So again, understanding how to segment and bring that information together is super important as you guys do purchase intent analysis. Now, some of this you can do inside of, obviously Google Analytics, and some of it you can't. You have to do an external tool or use an external tool. And we provide those solutions here at Penpath. So as I was saying, we reviewed the data. The results were they wanted to set a baseline. Anytime you guys use baselines, want to understand where that falls. So that their organic search had a 23% purchase intent baseline. Like that's where that was. And it was a really good indicator to say, hey, are we way above or below where organic search traffic is? They also use branded search as a good baseline on their purchase intent. These really normalize that data so you can know what's good and what's bad. Facebook ended up being 2% and YouTube was 4%, right? So now we're like, hey, does it make sense to keep YouTube at a 4% purchase intent conversion, or should we look elsewhere? They ended up diversifying some of the budget. They kept YouTube because they had a more expensive product, and they thought that it was bringing in enough new people. They looked at new users from this campaign as well. They didn't just obviously just look at one thing. It's like, okay, we're bringing a lot of traffic. The traffic is affordable. They're showing interest. Let's keep going, but until or unless it goes higher than what they would have set it at, which is like maybe 5 or 6%. Let's not increase the budget here and let's look elsewhere. So that's what it looks like to have success, guys. I just want to make sure I highlight that point. These conversations and decisions that you're making, they're not always going to be so obvious and clear, but now you have more data to make that decision. And so again, instead of scaling YouTube, you invested it in Reddit and TikTok. I'm going to go by 2 more examples a little bit quicker, but if you guys have any questions, definitely want to hear those in the chat. So another brand that we work with increased ROAS by 99% while increasing spend, right? So just a step-by-step process to be very tactical for everybody here. They set up their events. They made sure they were working. They cleaned their naming structure on their campaigns. So one of the things they used for their campaigns was the top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel nomenclature. So they could see, using our dashboard, how did top of funnel campaigns indicate interest from our shoppers. So when when ROAS or conversion rate were below baselines, that's when they checked purchase intent and use that as a tool to optimize and diagnose. And then what they did, which was pretty interesting and everybody can do, I don't think enough people do this, is they created audiences based on certain events happening. So this is very easy to do with Meta or Google. I think most platforms do this. Any of these events can be turned into audiences. So you can group everybody who added a cart, group everybody who searched a specific product, and then, obviously retarget them and create lookalike audiences. So definitely make sure you do that. And then, they cut some low performing top of funnel campaigns. Hamilton Beach improved orders from email by 22%. Oh, awesome. Atik, thanks for saying here. It looks like turning events into audience is very helpful. Yes, definitely do that. Spend a few minutes and learn how to do that. It is super, I think, super helpful. So step-by-step process. So in this situation, they understood that email, just like most ecom brands, is a huge driver of sales, right? And they use Klaviyo. And so this is our conversion dashboard. So we have a dashboard that shows you where your revenue is coming from. And we do a lot of cleanup in your source mediums to put fb.com and facebook.com. Our platform turns it into facebook.com, right? Just one holistic source medium instead of having to dig through everything in GA. So they realized that email was a big driver for them. So they set up some top of funnel campaigns that were optimized for that event. And so this isn't set up by default, but a really good tangible tactic here. Everybody needs to set up an event for email conversions. And if you have many forms on your site, make them all part of the same conversion so you can see, where do people that subscribe to our newsletter come from, right? That's a really good one. It's not one of the standard ones in GA4. They saw, they launched and invested in growing that email list with some campaigns. Then they had this large list they were retargeting, and it ended up increasing transactions from emails. And then obviously they had some flows and newsletters set up. And then the conversion rate, which is what GA4 calls transaction rate from email, that went up by 20%. So the people that were coming from email, that also improved. So again, these are the little wins that you guys keep doing. If you guys keep doing and using data, again, you can 2 or 3x your business, but you gotta focus on these tactical moves. All right. So speaking of tactical moves, UTMs and purchase intent signals. There's a lot of different places. So the table that you're seeing here is a nomenclature, right? So you have a medium like paid social, the source is TikTok, and then you see here some examples of how I named the campaigns. So all of these have PR in them. PR here stands for prospecting. We're trying to reach new people. And now we can group that set of campaigns and say 12% of the people that came from the PR campaigns, because remember, you can have PR campaigns in Facebook, right? You can have PR everywhere, and that's your total prospecting initiative. So that 12% added to cart, 82% viewed items, and maybe your bounce rate. We didn't talk about bounce rate. That's not necessarily part of purchase intent, but it's another metric that's helpful, is at a healthy place, right? And then maybe you look at the direct ad itself and say, hey man, this creative is awesome. I mean, we're getting 6% click-through rate, and our cost per click is only 24 cents. So that's where you want to be with your UTMs. So let's all just pause here. Just want to make sure if you have a UTM strategy, get your agency, your team, yourself to make sure that it's set up for success. Don't overthink it, but make sure that you're using UTMs that are going to help you to analyze holiday sales. Okay, so in segmentation, obviously from UTMs is what we just talked about. Let's just kind of recap a few more ways to segment purchase intent. So if we group these signals, aka purchase intent, we can look at how did organic do versus paid. So I mean, at least in our dashboards, I know you can do this in some other ways, but you can do all of your paid efforts. What was purchase intent for those? All organic search or organic social, what is purchase intent for that? Now you can have a better story to tell to your leadership team. Obviously specific campaigns that you're looking at, prospecting or retargeting efforts. We just talked about that. And then getting ready for holiday season, all your Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaigns. Make sure you're grouping all of those and say, man, these are new shoppers. Maybe they're discount shoppers right now, and let's see how they perform against the norm. Well, you can do that by proper segmentation. Now, if you have a top of funnel campaign, here's a mistake that happens, and you're just promoting people to be aware, and you combine that data with your bottom of funnel campaign, well, your overall purchase intent average is going to go down. So that's fine. You can look at your overall average, but sometimes it's just so much better to look at them and segment them accordingly. Okay, so I wish I would have bulleted these to go by one by one, but here's the takeaways for you guys today. So make sure you have events set up in GA4 and Google Tag Manager, GTM, right? Do an audit, make sure your tags are working as expected. Third point here is to use purchase intent to diagnose and control metrics like ROAS and conversion rate. And make sure you learn the relationship, kind of like I showed you guys in that diagram, from putting $1 in to getting $5 out. What's that whole journey look like? Use the 100x rule with purchase intent and any metric for that matter that you are looking to scale. Have a campaign naming and UTM strategy, and then segment traffic source when analyzing purchase intent. And again, probably want to segment for looking at any data so that you get a richer, more telling insight on what to do. All right, would love to know any questions that you may have. And I do have a giveaway for everybody here today. If you book a time with Penpath for e-commerce stores, we're going to do a personalized measurement strategy session with you. We're going to show you the 5 steps to a measurement strategy and how you can be really set up for success. It's something that's very tangible. And again, the time invested for the output, You want to do this. It's 5 things that you have to do to have a good measurement strategy. We'll review your current marketing strategy, give you some feedback there, provide any guidance on your top growth bottleneck, and then we're going to also provide you with your UTM cheat sheet. We have a UTM cheat sheet that automatically creates UTMs for you. So many brands love this because it makes that process easier. But yeah, thanks everybody, and yeah, looking forward to get some questions from you.
Alex, maybe click once again. There's a bit of an animation there for the link.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Here's the short link as well for you guys to use. And would love any feedback, guys. What did you find most helpful? And if you know any e-commerce leader who needs help, who wants that support, that expert advice and guidance and platform, please let them know about Penpath. We'll, if you send them our way, we'll also be happy to talk to them about a measurement strategy. Teague, thank you for the really nice feedback and kind words.
We do have some questions.
Okay.
There's some questions regarding the GA4 and shipping. And let me just find it. Okay, in your view, Alex, should shipping and tax be included in the GA4 revenue metric? This is a question by Jointy.
So yeah, should so that is certainly a good way to, well, it depends on who you're reporting to. Frankly, a lot of times we don't look at GA4 for the final revenue metric. So if that's something that you can easily do and want to clean the data, by all means, the cleaner the data, the better. But a lot of times for that information, we connect to, Shopify, BigCommerce, or the ecom platform that's our customers use. And that's where we really pull in that net revenue metric or, gross revenue metric. So we don't typically rely fully in GA4 outside of, it being close enough to measure. So it does boil down to, if that's your source of truth, then do it. If you have access to the ecom platforms, then it's a matter of does it matter enough in your specific situation and who you're reporting to from there.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from Francesco. How is the purchase intent rate calculated?
How is purchase intent calculated? So it's all of the events that you've selected divided by page views. Now, if you want to come up with a different formula, you certainly can, but that's how we're calculating it. You get the total amount of events based on your selection of events, and you divide it by page views. That's the rate or ratio of conversion that we use here at Penpath. And just to add to that, just quickly to add to that note, the most important thing here is that when you group those events, if you have one event that's dramatically higher, like a page view event or something, make sure you just consider, how often an event happens for it to give you or yield a better insight. So if an event's happening, a million times, then it may skew other events, and that's where you have to make some judgment calls.